about 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago, 2002. So 2002, I graduate college. I cared about nothing but drinking a lot and hitting the bars, pretty much, in that order generally. But like lots of it, party, 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 and that's all I cared about. And my dad basically tells me, you need to get a job, and circled a couple ads. One of them said manager training, and it was in a newspaper, so that's how long ago it was. So he's like, you need to apply for these jobs, we're kicking you out. So I went out, go on this interview. I showed up early because I had a date later on, and the guy was super impressed that I showed up so early for my interview that he invited me back. So I went out in the field. I had no idea what was going on. We were going business to business, and everyone always told me I talk a lot, I'm very loud. So of course, what does everybody tell you when you talk a lot and you're really loud? You should do sales. You'll be really good at sales. So everyone's been telling me my whole life I'll be really good at sales. So I'm thinking, dude, I'm gonna kill this, I'm gonna do great. Guy takes me out, was very unassumingly good, very laid back, kind of tired looking all the time, still one of my best friends. And I just thought, man, if this guy can do it, I can do it, right? Like this guy made like $250 today, I'm gonna make like $500 a day, right? So I went out in the field, and at first it was cool, right? Like I'm going out and doing my thing, and then I started, I would have good days and I'd have bad days, right? And I think generally I was a pretty emotional person. I think I still am. And I think that there's something to be said for this kind of journey I've been on for the last 20 years. And that journey is, why the hell does hearing the word no bother me so much? Right? For whatever reason, you go out there, and if people are mean to you, or you hear the word no, or you're not having the day that you want to have, it seems to have an effect on you, whether you're noticing or not, right? It took me about 6 months. I'm a slow learner. So it took me about 6 months where I had this awesome day, right? I'm out in the field, and I'm just absolutely cleaning up. And everybody got a sale. There's this one lady, I walked into a business. She was jumps out of her chair and starts yelling at me. And by the end of the conversation, she was giving me her daughter's phone number because she thought that, oh my God, my daughter would love you. Here you go. So it went from get out of here, you called me a loser, get a real job. It was every bad thing that a salesperson hears was all at once. And then she's like, but you should date my daughter. So I walked out of that. This was it. So thank you to that lady. I still remember her face and everything. We're getting from really mean to really happy. And I walked out, and I just remember thinking I'm on fire, baby. And then I'm like, well, wait a second. How am I on fire? I'm saying the same exact thing I always say, right? I'm doing the same thing I always did. So I know that a lot of times, especially because we don't have back in the days, we had to come in the office every day, in the morning, at the night. We drove hours and hours and hours, every day. So you had, for me, I had to work a full day. I didn't really have a lot of money. And so when I got my butt kicked, I never just said, you know what, that's it, I'm going home. I didn't live in my area. I lived hours away. So, and I had to go back to the office at the end of the night. So, I worked all day. I worked 8 hours every single day, no matter what. And I didn't always get the results, right? And so all of a sudden I had this kind of epiphany, wait a second, the only thing that's different about today is I have a better attitude. I'm more positive, I'm more excited. And that translates, right? Think about, and everybody here knows what this feels like. Think about when you've been really excited and you're having a really great day and you feel like you can walk on water, right? You guys know what that feels like, right? Can you almost feel like you're having your best day ever at any given time, right? Tony Robbins calls that, he does this thing, right? Where he says, look, get yourself really, really excited. If you've ever seen Tony Robbins videos where he's all fired up, he'll hit his chest. Anybody who's ever seen it, he'll do this thing where he hits his chest. That's an anchor. So what he's doing is he gets himself really excited. I think I just smeared this all over myself. So, and he uses that as a way to get himself excited and to remember what it feels like to be really positive. So I started going through this journey of figuring out, how do I stop letting the word no bother me so much, right? And I think that there's a few things that I can help with that work for me, and I'll go through it. I could go on to this for hours, like 20 years, a long time to be learning all this stuff. So I'll start with a couple things, right? Number one, focus on the actions, my handwriting's terrible, that drive the results, right? A lot of times, we are so focused on getting yeses, right? I was talking to Mike D about this earlier, right? I was saying how we like latch on, right? Like it's an ego, it's a function of your ego to like latch on to something and want it to be a certain way, and when it's not, you get upset, right? Anytime you don't get what you want, right? Like if I surprised you and it was a negative surprise, you'd be really upset. Like if you thought you were like you could be thinking you're gonna get something for your birthday, you got something else and you're like disappointed, you know? Same kind of thing. So if you're so focused on getting a yes, every time you don't get one, you're going to be upset about that. If you're focused on doing a great job with your pitch, overturning the objections the way that it says on the sheet, nodding and smiling, right? Working your system. If you focus on the actions that get you the results, then what happens is the yeses become the side effect. The effect, right, what you're looking to do is just do it right. Okay? Getting no's just comes with the territory, right? Like Anthony Jones, where are you at? You here? Right there. 18 sales, right? Anybody tell you no?
Oh, a lot of people.
A lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Probably more people than normal, actually. You probably were hustling like so hard that more people probably told you no. Even though he gets a lot of yeses, we can look at his numbers. A lot of people tell him no, right? So you also got to look at like, some people say this, right? Every no gets you closer to your yes, right? Part of your job, like you should start looking at the negatives that are happening all the time as just, this is just what happens in my job. It's just part of the job. They all, like the yeses are just kind of sprinkled out there, right? Because you may or may not have a great attitude. You may or may not be feeling it, and I can tell you something, you're not the only one. There are people in your area that you're going to go out to today. Some of them are in a great mood. Some of them are having an awesome day. Some of them had a date yesterday and it went so well. Other people, like Lance said earlier, just found out that their significant other cheated on them. They're not going to want to talk to you. Right? Sometimes you look just like my brother, and I love my brother. Sometimes you look at the bully, you look like the bully who used to beat the shit out of me when I was 10. Much harder, right? It's much harder to win that person over if you're like, you son of a bitch, you know, right? It's just, that's how it works. Some people are just gonna, it's just their day. Some people just looked at their electric bill and they're pissed off about it. Some people just talked to somebody who just went solar and said it's great. Your job is to find those people. But in your area, it's like a haystack of no's with a bunch of needles in it. And every day, those needles get shifted around. So you never know. I've gone to talk to people that yelled at me. So back in the day, we used to have to loop a system, but we were actually supposed to hit all the doors no matter what they said. We had to go back and talk to them again. Just imagine that. Get the hell out of here. And then you come back like, it's me again. Like, hey, the craziest thing happened though. Some of them were like super nice the second time. Like there'd be like, some of them were just like straight up just mean all the time. Like I thought I told you, right? But there were other people where they would be like, get out of here. And I'd come back and the next day they'd be like, oh, hey, how you doing? And it was almost like they didn't even remember me. Like it was like strange. So every no, like this is an easy one, right? Every no is closer to yes. And then we have, what do we talk about? Know why you're here and where you're going, right? Know your goals, right? Your goals have to be bigger than your problems. So how big are your goals? I can almost guarantee you that when Anthony Jones said, I'm going to be on the he said it. I'm going to be a Golden Door winner. right? He knew how much, I assume you knew kind of how much money they were making. As soon as you set that goal, did the no's seem to bother you yet, like less? You were like, were you more focused? The negatives didn't get in your way as much. If you're shooting to make $800,000 or $1 million in a year, and you are really married to the idea of getting it, where you're like, I'm going to get it no matter what, it becomes easy. Because the no's are just something that happens. It's just a word. It comes in a lot of different variations, right? But it's just a word. So if you recognize that it's happening, if you recognize it's going to happen, no matter how well you do, they're going to come. And if you're just focused on the actions, on doing it right, not about getting a result, like we're not like making people do anything, right? They're not going to do anything they don't want to do, right? So all we can do is work our system properly, and some of the people will respond positively to that system. Most of them don't. All right? Couple other tips and tricks here. How many of you have gone out in the field where it seems like a bad area, where people are really mean here? Okay. Most people don't go shopping for a house and say, what are the people like here? Are they assholes? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, sign me up. I'm an asshole too. Right? That's not how it works, right? So, is it?
I went to a lady.
And she was like, I moved to the town of assholes?
Work stuff, and I was like, are you interested in real estate? I'm not a homeowner. I was like, how about people on this block? You know anybody? They're all, I don't want to curse, but she said that they're all cursed. And I was like, I was just shocked. I looked at my boy in the car, and I was like,
Maybe they just don't like her. She could be that nasty neighbor, man. They exist. But here's the thing, right? When I recognize that there are people, if I'm getting a lot of negative reactions, I'm going to tell you something really interesting here. We have these things called mirror neurons, okay? We naturally mirror other people. So, for example, how do you talk to an old lady? Do I talk about, I'm like, hey, grandma! No, right? You're not all fired up and, how do you talk to your hey, grandma, right? Because how do they talk? Oh, hi. And you're like, oh, hey, right? You act the way they're acting towards you. It's a natural phenomenon. If somebody loses their voice and they're whispering because they lost their voice, right? And then sometimes you find yourself whispering. It's like, you didn't lose your voice. Why are you whispering? Right? Because you're matching them. Somebody goes and lives in England for 10 years. They come back and all of a sudden they have an English accent. Right? You had to survive 10,000 years ago. And if you got separated from your people, you better start acting like the people you happen to run into. Right? And so you start to naturally act like them. Right? If people are being mean to you at the door, okay? Somebody told me this once, a really great analogy. The field is like somebody holding a mirror up to your face. And however you're acting is how they're going to respond. So if you're not feeling it, they will also not be feeling it. If you're really positive and nice, it becomes incredibly difficult. People will still do it. This is not a cure-all. But people will generally be nice to people who are nice. They don't know you. We don't mail out I don't know what the hell they do. I used to say they mail a videotape, but nobody has those anymore.
Some people apologize when they say that.
Yeah, no, they'll say sorry. You seem like a really nice guy. I've had people go down the street, they yelled at me, and I just had a smile on my face with THC factor, right? I'm like, hey, I understand, no problem, have a great day. I'm sorry about that. I had a guy, he drove down the street, he's like, hey, and I'm like, oh God, come on, man. I'm just trying to, I was like, you really gonna chase me down and keep yelling at me? And he's like, dude, I'm sorry, man, you didn't deserve that. You were being really cool, and I'm just in a bad mood, whatever, hey, hop in the car, come on back, I'll buy what you got. Right? And I've had that happen to me. Yeah, it could have gone wrong, I guess. But he did buy. I've had that happen more than one time. More than one time. Right? I had one where I'm talking to this lady, I'm signing her up. Right? This is business to business. Her boss comes flying out of the office, starts screaming at me. And I'm like, hey, yeah, no, I understand. Yep, you're right. You are very busy. I appreciate that. And he stops mid-sentence I'm sorry, man. You must really hate your job. I'm like, no, why do you say that? And he's like, because you got to deal with people like me. He used that word. Don't say that word, it's a bad word. So, you got to deal with people like me. I'm like, no, man, listen, you're a busy guy. You run a company. And he goes, just buy whatever he's got. He went back in his office. I'm like, all right. Right? It's very difficult to be mean to nice people. They don't get like, we don't send them a video, or like a clip, whatever they call it nowadays, whatever you kids call it, right? Like with your life story of like, oh, look, and then she rode a bike, right? Like, and she won the Little League game. And, and he walked his grandmom across the street. Look at that. Like, they don't get to, all they know is they open the door and you're standing there. So however you are is going to elicit a response from them. Okay? So when you're getting a bunch of like rough people in a row, stop, like take an attitude check. Okay? Is your attitude a 10 or a 9? Because I've had people say, I've got a great attitude. Well, what is it? Scale of 1 to 10. 6. That's not a great attitude. Right? That's like a, right? So just imagine you have a guitar and several of the strings are out of tune, but you're like, well, 4 of the strings are in tune. Let me play you a song. How's it going to sound? Not very good. Right? It's got to be in tune. You got to have a positive attitude. So here's a little trick, right? As soon as you recognize you got a few rough ones in a row, mentally, begin again. Just start over. The next door is your first door. Just start fresh. You can start fresh at every door if you want. Begin again. It's just a little mental thing, right? Because you get in this habit and it, like every no just seems to like weigh on you a little bit, right? It just like builds up. Just start over, right? If you really got to, like, go grab a cup of coffee, or if you don't drink coffee, drink whatever it is you drink, or hang it, well, maybe not, but keep it professional, people. But that, or like whatever, take a break, do whatever. And then come back and begin again. Some people can just, as soon as you get good at this, you can just begin again over and over and over again. You're having a couple bad ones, you're not feeling it, you know what, I'm going to start over. We're back to square one. All right? Any questions about that? Any questions about attitude? Anybody have any? Like I'm telling you, I've had crazy days out in the field. So I've had times where I was miserable. I've had times where I wanted to quit. I had times where I thought I wasn't good enough to do this. Yeah.
Like, what's your coping mechanism to like get your mind off the disappointment of like the rejection? How do you transform to like start all over? What is yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first, I think the first thing is like when I was a kid, I used to wrestle, right? And it's funny because every person that I know that wrestles had the same experience. They used to make you stand in a corner and get psyched up. And I was like, this is very awkward. Like, I'm supposed to stand there and like, whoa. Like, it's like ridiculous, right? But you were supposed to get yourself all amped up. So I would get myself super amped up. I would blare DMX and I would just get really, really excited and fired up. Where that song, like, all I do is win, right? I just get myself really pumped before I go in the field. Like I'm an athlete, right? Like getting excited. Everybody who's been in a sport, what do they do before the game?
They have a ritual.
They get all jumped up, they're putting their hands in the middle, right? They're getting amped up. Like start looking at this, like look at everything that a professional athlete does, right? They're training, they're doing this, they're doing that, right? They work hard, they're at practice, they warm up before they play the game, right? And then it's like, well, that's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like what we do. It's very parallel. Right, Marquiso, from what I hear, I haven't talked to you about this actually, apparently he was not comfortable at doors when he first started, right? Is that true? He was not comfortable, right? But what he is competitive. What he is an athlete. And for whatever reason, there just seems to be this like parallel between what it takes to be great in athletics and what it takes to be great here. The best part about it is you don't have to be 7 feet tall. You don't have to be like super buff. You don't have to be able to jump 60 inches in the air. I could barely get off the ground personally. I have like this much of a lift. It's terrible. It's embarrassing, frankly. But like you don't have to have any of that. All you have to do is be able to like smile at people and like nod your head and like walk to doors and like knock on that door. Like you have to be able to memorize a couple sentences of a pitch, especially when you're at the door. Like when you're in the home, it's a few more sentences. But like, there's not that much. But yet there's such a significant difference between the pros, right? Like I don't know if Lance talked about this. You're talking about the difference between like all-stars and Hall of Famers, right? Like there's a difference, right? The people who are pros, like they're just in it every day. They're getting themselves amped up. They're just on a mission to just kick some butt. So with the rejection, I think if you have big goals, I think that really helps. If you look at it like, I'm gonna have this career, and in this career, good and bad things are gonna happen, right? Like, if like every movie you've ever seen where the person becomes successful, it's not like it all just went well. There's always like the strife and the tough things and bad things and this happened and that happened, right? Like that's just part of the journey. And so you have to like take a step back and look at like the whole, like the entirety of it, which is, it just comes with the territory, like no pun intended, right? It just happens. So like, there's no reason to get discouraged about something that you know is going to, like it's inevitable. You're getting discouraged. It's like feeling like, man, I really suck at this every time it rains because you were hoping it would be a nice day out. You're like, damn, I'm like not. It's like take it personally. You know, like people are gonna say no. Most people are gonna say no. That's just the game, right? And so like sometimes you just got to shake it off. And then the other part of it is focus on making it like fun, right? One thing I learned was if I'm stressing or if I'm worried about negatives, right? I got to pay my bills. I got to do well or else maybe I'll get fired or I won't, maybe I'm not good enough. If you focus on that stuff, like the job becomes much harder and less fun. If you focus on kicking butt, if you focus on having a great time, we used to do this thing where we'd all chant, have fun, make money, right? Like if you have fun, you make money. It doesn't happen the other way. You can't make money then have fun in this game, unfortunately. You have to have fun first, and then people want to talk to you. People are like, what is this guy? People say, like, whatever you're drinking, I want some, right? Like I wanted people to tell me that, right? Like I know that if I'm positive, people want to be around that. That's just my experience, right? But you have to like make yourself, you have to become, like they used to say this, right? You have to become the person that people are going to want to say yes to. And the best part about that is, has anybody here ever heard somebody tell them yes to something ever in their life? So you've been the person that people have said yes to, regardless of whether you've sold a thing in your life. Someone's told you yes at some point, right? So you were that person. You were a person that someone said yes to. So you just got to become the type of person that makes it easy for people to say yes. So who do you want to say yes to? Like if I was a jerk, like how many people do you know you argue on, like how many people here have ever argued on Facebook? Right? Do they ever admit that you're fucking right, even when you like nailed it? You're like, boom, like irrefutable. They're like, I don't care. Yeah, like they they're never gonna admit it. You gotta be the kind of person that people want to say yes to. If you make it like adversarial, if you're not a person that they feel like they can trust, they're not going to do it. So at any moment, this isn't something that takes years to get good at. At any moment, you can be a person that people would want to say yes to, right? Who do you want to say yes to? Somebody who's friendly, maybe. Somebody who's positive. Somebody who seems knowledgeable. Somebody who's like helpful, right? Like these are all like positive traits, right? Like it's just all about the attitude. That's it. The attitude comes first. So even if you're not, like, if you stop worrying about the money, if you just say, dude, if I just have a good time and work really hard and I just say the same thing over and over again, some of them are going to say yes. Right? There are people going solar every day. Just look for those people. There are people today, right now. There are people right now saying yes to solar. And if you had knocked on their door today, they'd be saying yes to you. Cool? All right. I'm out of time, everybody. Thank you very much. Hopefully that was helpful.
Let's have a bathroom break right now, if you could.
Oh, yeah. How are we doing, by the way? Potentially